10 years. That's how long I gave to the Delgado family's company. I started in a dusty backroom office with 2 interns and a laptop, managing supply chains, logistics, close and B2B deals, everything. I worked late nights while my wife, Alina, begged me to slow down. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, even my father's funeral just to be the right hand to her father, Emilio Delgado. He called me son, said I was the future of the company, that he trusted me more than his own blood. But none of that made it into writing. 2 months ago, Emilio retired. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, a quiet exit, private treatment abroad. With no sons to pass the empire to, he handed the reins to his oldest daughter, Celeste, my sister-in-law. She had sharp heels, a sharper tongue, and a boyfriend who thought he was the next Elon Musk because he once flipped a cryptocurrency. From day one, I saw it coming. She stopped inviting me to meetings. She reassigned my team, started copying Travis, her boyfriend, on emails I used to be on. Still, I said nothing. I watched. I documented. Then it happened. It was during the quarterly board meeting. I was scheduled to present a projected $12 million expansion proposal. Celeste walked in smirking like she'd already won. She interrupted me mid-slide. "We're going in a different direction," she said. A younger, more innovative vision. Then she looked at Travis, who wore a smug designer suit and that smug designer smirk. "You've done enough, brother-in-law. We won't be needing your services anymore." A few sycophants on the board chuckled. Even Alina just stared at her lap. I looked around the room. Silent, calm. Then I smiled. "Understood," I said simply. "I'll clear my office tonight." Celeste raised an eyebrow. "You don't seem upset." "Oh, I'm not," I said, standing. "In fact, tomorrow's going to be fascinating." Because what Celeste didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I quietly spent the last 2 years preparing for this exact moment. And when the truth came out tomorrow, their empire was going to fall. Hard. Back at my office, while they popped overpriced champagne, I locked the door, shut the blinds, and pulled out a single-page contract I kept stashed in a private drawer. Addendum 12B. Signed by Emilio Delgado himself 6 years ago, during a late-night negotiation in his study, right after I helped him save the company from a $28 million lawsuit. "For your loyalty," he had said, bourbon in hand. "You'll get this." The clause was simple and binding, effective immediately. 15% of all intellectual property, licensing, and digital infrastructure developed under my name would be jointly owned between the company and me. In the event of leadership change, the agreement remained valid. Guess who built the company's software platform from scratch? Who filed the back-end server patents in his name and licensed them to the company? Who wrote the proprietary logistics algorithm that saved them tens of millions a year? Me. They thought they could fire me without consequence. But this wasn't a resignation. It was a trap. That night, I remotely revoked every license key from my private server. The customer support dashboards went offline. Warehouse logistics software froze. The e-commerce backbone went dark. They'd call it a glitch. Try rebooting. But the real code, it lived with me. It always had. At 8:03 a.m. the next morning, Celeste called. Her voice was high-pitched and furious. "What did you do? The entire back end is down. Orders are failing. Fulfillment is stalled." I cut her off. Calmly, "I suggest you refer to Addendum 12B of the private agreement signed by your father. It's legally filed. I own part of the IP, and you breached our agreement the moment you terminated me without cause." Silence. "You're bluffing." I laughed softly. "Celeste, go check your email. And Travis? He should probably sit down before he checks his." Celeste thought she had traded up. Travis, her strategic advisor, was a slick-talking Ivy League MBA with a toothy grin and a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords. Flashy suits. Crypto talk at every meeting. But behind the charm, he was a con artist with a sealed record in Nevada, a trail of failed startups, and 2 pending lawsuits for misappropriating investor funds. I knew all this because I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. I first noticed Travis hovering around the office, whispering into Celeste's ear. He wasn't a threat then, just a cockroach. And I always tracked cockroaches. Before I walked out of that building, I prepared a parting gift. At 9 a.m., just as Celeste was spinning the shutdown as a scheduled audit, an anonymous email hit every major shareholder's inbox. Subject line: before you let Travis touch your money, you might want to see this. Attached was a 63-page PDF compiled by my PI. Screenshots of shell company transfers. Documents showing how Travis embezzled $180,000 from a former employer. And the cherry on top, a recorded phone call where Travis told a friend, "Dude, once I'm in with the Delgado family, I'll drain that company dry." By noon, the board was in chaos. Share prices dipped. Vendors started pulling out. Celeste tried to deny it. Then Travis disappeared. Phone off. Apartment cleared out. Gone. The man she fired me for had ghosted her, leaving her holding the grenade. She tried calling me 8 times. I didn't answer. Then she called her father. By 5 p.m., an emergency board meeting was called. Not by email, not by Celeste, but by Don Alberto Delgado himself, my former father-in-law, the man who once looked at me like I was disposable. He'd been retired for 2 years, enjoying yachts and cigars in Monaco. But when news of Travis's scam and the software lockdown hit, he returned like a king summoned by thunder. He walked into the conference room like a ghost resurrected. Everyone stood, even Celeste. His voice calm, low, deadly, cut through the air. "Where is he?" Celeste swallowed. Travis vanished. "And the man you fired? The one who ran this company for a decade? Where is he?" She mumbled, "Trying to ruin us." Don Alberto turned the room, eyes scanning every face. "No," he said. "You ruined yourselves. He warned you. You spat on his loyalty. You laughed in his face. And now, he's the only one who knew how to keep this place standing. Alive." Then he sat down and looked directly at her. "Fix it. Call him. Beg if you have to." She didn't argue. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a whiskey in hand. When the call came, it wasn't Celeste this time. It was Don Alberto. He didn't waste time with apologies. "You still have recovery protocols, don't you?" "I do." "We need you back." I sipped my drink, staring at the skyline I helped build. "I'm not coming back as an employee," I said. "I come back on my terms, as CEO. Full control. You and Celeste step aside." Silence. Then, deal. The next morning, I walked into the boardroom in a custom Navy suit, not as their errand boy, not as their family puppet, but as a man who rebuilt their empire and was now ready to reshape in my image. Celeste couldn't even look me in the eye. Her father gave me a single nod. And me? I gave my first order. Our first initiative, ethical restructuring. And by the way, Travis's office? Turn it into a janitor's closet. Seems more fitting. The board chuckled. But deep down, they all knew the king was back. I didn't come back to stay. No, I came back to take everything I earned, to expose everything they buried and leave them with nothing but regret. Within weeks of my return as CEO, I cleaned up the chaos. I revoked every shady deal Celeste had greenlit, purged Travis's cronies from the company, and restored confidence in the board, the investors, and the market. But behind the scenes, I was preparing my exit, quietly, deliberately, because unlike them, I didn't need power to feel important. I had already won. 2 months later, I called one final board meeting. This time, Celeste sat at the far end, silent, small, and stripped of any authority. Alberto watched me closely, like he already suspected something. "I'm stepping down," I said. Gasps rippled around the table. "But before I go, I'm activating the final clause of my contract." I calmly handed over the documents. A buyout. Thanks to the IP I co-owned, the restructuring value I created, and the share options I negotiated on return, the company now owed me $38 million in cash. Not stock. Cash. It would leave their accounts bleeding, and I didn't care. This was my final invoice. Payment for 10 years of backstabbing, betrayal, and humiliation. Celeste's jaw dropped. Alberto didn't speak. He just leaned back, face pale, fingers steepled. They knew they couldn't stop it, because they signed the contract. They let me back in, and I made sure every dotted line led to this moment. As I left the building for the last time, I paused in the lobby. Celeste came running after me. "Why?" she hissed. "Why go this far?" I smiled, because when you fired me in front of the board, I realized something. I was never just a help. I was a foundation. And without me, you collapse. She stood there, speechless, as I walked out the revolving doors into a waiting car, into a future that didn't include them. I used part of the payout to launch a venture fund for underdog entrepreneurs. The rest, I used to disappear to a quiet beach town with someone who saw me not as a tool, but as a partner. As for Celeste, the company never recovered from the buyout. She's now selling cheap consulting packages on LinkedIn. And Don Alberto? Still alive, still silent, but now irrelevant.